April 17th, and Johnson and Sherman are supposed to meet over here at Benton Place. This has been in the works for a while. The Confederate Army has been kind of on the move here in North Carolina, up from Smithfield, North Carolina. They've been on the run. They lost a battle at Bentonville. Bentonville. How about Stupidville?
Well, it wouldn't be a good Waffles video without some mistakes there. That's me at the Bennett Place trying to describe the Battle of Bentonville, and I just couldn't get it right. No matter what I did, I kept going back and forth. So,
So
well,
you just said forget
yeah, I just said forget it. It's I'm going to be parked in Stupidville all day today.
it.
Well, today we got ourselves a good guest here, Sarah or Salina B. Baker, author of The Line of Splendor. Excellent book here on one of my favorites, Nathaniel Greene. Welcome to the channel, Selena.
Thank you so much, Harley. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks. Well, I guess kind of the glaring question for me to you is obviously you're kind of wrapped up into the American Revolution. You have a previous series of books that you were working on, and they took the turn towards focusing in on Nathaniel Greene. Um, how did you get into writing in the first place?
It's something I'd always wanted to do, but I was, busy with marriage and kids and career and blah blah blah. And so when my kids left home, I wrote a couple of historical fantasy novels. Nothing big. Put them in the desk, drawer. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I still wanted to write more. And
Okay.
I just came up with writing a historical fantasy series about the American Revolution because I'd always liked the Revolution as a kid.
Yeah.
And it was something that I could learn a lot about. There was lots to learn.
Yeah.
And I dived right in with it. And the first book starts at the end of 1774, and the series ends at the surrender of Yorktown.
Okay. So, how many of those places have you actually gone to visit? The places you
A
write about?
lot. I haven't been to Yorktown since, well, this is how old I am, since 1979.
Okay.
It's been a long time, but we travel all over. I mean, we've been everywhere. I speak about General Greene everywhere: Boston, Valley Forge, Washington Crossing, um, Cowpens, 96, Camden. We go to as many Revolutionary War related places as we can,
Yeah.
where General Greene is buried in Savannah, to his house in Coventry, Rhode Island. Um, we travel as much as we can just to see any Revolutionary War related, whether it's a house, a battlefield, a cemetery. All we learn things from all of those things.
Okay. Excellent. So, how did you get the idea to turn your focus into Nathaniel Greene, just the one individual, and just kind of narrow down the scope?
He was in the series in 3 books.
Hmm.
And after the series was done and published, I felt like I wasn't done with them, and I really can't tell you why.
Okay.
He stuck with me, and he wasn't the main character in the series by any means. He was important,
Yeah.
but I started deep diving into primary resources, which by this time I knew how to find things on him as well. His papers, uh, things that were written by his family, papers that were written by Washington, Joseph Reed,
Yeah.
Lighthorse Harry Lee, all these guys,
Yeah.
and women, Martha Washington. So I was attracted to him as a person because as I read about him and read his letters and the things he said, I got more and more interested in his personality, and
Okay.
also his wife Katie was part of that
Okay.
as well. So I
So,
just
how do you
decided to
end up?
expand.
How do you end up balancing that narrative with the historic record too? You know, as a writer, I would assume that you have that thin line where you're trying to bring them to life, but you're also not trying to put words in their mouth.
Right. That's a very difficult. I have to keep in mind I'm writing about a real person.
Yeah.
That's extremely important, and that's part of the reason I wrote a novel. Was kind of what you were just saying is I can take what he wrote, his papers, if he say at the siege of Boston with Washington, they communicated with each other.
Yeah.
Well, most of it's all written down, but why couldn't they have been there actually speaking to one another? They would have been. But
Yeah.
what we see from our side is our letters and paintings and things like that. But from their
Right.
side, they were really people.
Yeah.
So some of the things were written as letters, others are written as conversations from letters.
Okay.
Some of it was written as conversations based on, let's say this, based on what they were doing. And they might not have actually said a certain thing to one another, but say they were trying to decide where to set up camp in South Carolina, and he's with his adjutant, Otho Holland Williams, or Daniel Morgan. They're going to talk about what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So you can make these educated historical conversations as well.
Okay. Okay. So you're basically you're having to animate these people and bring them to life inside of your own imagination, but at the same time, with the knowledge you have, you're using knowledge to build those conversations.
Right. Because the novel should have conversation. Otherwise, it's just a nonfiction. And there's nothing wrong with nonfiction. That's all I read. But
Yeah.
otherwise, it's just a nonfiction telling you the story instead of you being in the story with them and how they felt about what they were doing. And you can tell how they felt about what they were doing from
Yeah.
their letters and their
Yeah.
diaries and things like that.
Yeah, and from reading this book, I can definitely the emotional side of it does come up a lot in the book. You can definitely feel those emotions. Um, the Revolutionary War's been covered a lot. There's a lot of stuff out there about it. What unique thing do you think people can gain from this book that you've written, the perspective on Nathanael Greene and maybe his relationships?
I think that unique thing is his relationships with his brothers,
Okay.
with his wife Katie. As you
Yeah.
know, Katie has her own point of view. There's information about Katie out there, and unlike
Yeah.
some wives of revolutionary generals or soldiers. Um, I think that you can see him as a man and not just this lofty major general who's out there fighting battles and writing letters to Congress. I think what this book offers is an insight into Nathanael Greene's the people that were around him as well.
Okay. What do you think Nathanael Greene would think of us today?
Think of me and you, just us.
No, this country, our
this
people.
I don't. He was a nationalist. I I think there would be some disappointment that he
Okay.
may have seen things. The Civil War would have disappointed him, I think.
Yeah.
Um, I think he would be kind of shocked to see how we've changed over the years. But then on the other hand, human nature doesn't change that much. So I think that
Yeah.
he recognized us too.
Yeah. So now Nathanael Greene was he was a really young man when he died.
Yes.
We're talking 43. That's not.
Hmm.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty young. And I've read in other accounts that it was possibly had something to do with his liver or something along those lines that he
I
may have picked up, but it's all speculation. In the end of your book, you kind of walk through the whole process of him taking this trip to go see this field, and as he's walking, he's trying to wipe his forehead, and you're building this story up about how he's really not sweating, he's really not perspiring, and his wife is picking up on this. Um, with that whole portion of it, how difficult is it to kind of relive the very end and then kind of work your way through this, maybe from the eyes of Katie?
it started to switch over to her eyes like you said, because he was starting to slip away and would soon become unresponsive. It was extremely difficult for me, um, as a person who spent years writing about General Greene, um, talking about him
Yeah.
and working through watching him die after all of that, after everything he went through. And
Yeah.
that was me watching him die,
Yeah.
and like you, watching him die. And so I was trying to describe to the reader, we don't, we don't know the exact details, but sunstroke is something where you don't sweat. I wanted the reader to be able to tell that this was happening to him.
Yeah.
And some of it, I assumed Katie would behave in a certain way as I'm a woman and a wife, and what I
Yeah.
would do. They were different then. I know, women
Right.
had their different roles then, but I think love is love. And
Yeah.
she's losing her husband. She had miscarried a baby 2
Yeah.
months before. Um, they just moved to Savannah. They'd only been there like 7 months. Here she is, 31 years old, and her husband's dying.
Yeah.
And they just moved and left Rhode Island, and she has 5 children.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a very difficult thing for sure.
Hmm.
So what do you think the power is of Katie in this book? What does she bring to this?
She's always by his side. He's gone all the time. She likes to party, and she does. But I think she brings, stabilizes him. He's the one that she's the one he writes to when he's distressed, or when
Right.
he's happy, or
Yeah.
he's had a triumph, or he's sick. And she's the one behind him and beside him the entire Revolutionary War. And they had a very short marriage, 12 years, that was it. And then he's
Yeah.
dead. So
Yeah. What was your greatest challenge in writing this book?
um I think the greatest challenge is, and this is going to sound silly, was keeping the timeline straight. There was so
Okay.
much happening, um, and also not overwhelming the reader with constant battles. There
Yeah.
were constant battles, and there are lots and lots of battles.
Yeah.
Uh, and we need to know these things and what happened, but to overwhelm someone with too many of them and not enough, what was going on in between. I think that was my biggest challenge.
Okay. So you've had a pretty good career so far writing books, and this one in particular with Nathanael Greene is real to me. It's not just a historical perspective, but it's that narrative portion that gives a voice of a person that we can't talk to. Is maybe this kind of the first step in the direction of more narratives on individuals?
Yes. And
Okay.
that's really good catch on your part, Charlie. I wasn't so concentrated on that with my series. It was more, it's historical fantasy. So we have angels fighting in the Revolutionary War.
Right.
Love it or leave it, that's what it is. Um, there was character development, but this was different. I'm writing a book right now about Dr. Joseph Warren. I don't
Okay.
know if people know who he is. Uh, Most people don't. He was a Boston physician, son of liberty, buds with, Sam Adams, all those guys. He sent Paul Revere on his midnight ride, um, and died at the Battle of Bunker Hill at age 34. He's
Okay.
relatively unknown compared to General Greene, but I've written about him before. He was in the first book of my historical fantasy series. He was a prominent character. But this time I'm writing a novel about him and focusing on his life, just like I did General Greene. There's a lot less known about Dr. Warren's personal life.
Yeah.
So I'm having to construct something that a nonfiction book wouldn't construct, and that's his life with his wife. We don't hardly know anything about it. But we know what the times are, and we know who she was and
Mhm.
some things about her. So, yes, um, going forward, it's going to be this type of novel like I wrote for General Greene, and that hopefully this novel about Dr. Warren will turn out the same way.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, what kind of a career life did you have prior to writing books? Because folks folks get into writing from all different sides, right? I mean, there are
Yeah.
authors that come into this from. I know one that was an announcer, and then all of a sudden decided to start writing books. How about
Yeah, it
yourself?
just kind of gets a bug gets in you. I have a degree in computer science and worked in the field for 25 years. Uh, COVID killed my job. I worked in the same company. We all lost our jobs. Um, so I just retired, but that's my background is computer science.
Okay, that's so. I guess that's what maybe that helps you with researching, getting in deep when it comes to the research.
Oh yeah, debugging code, writing code, building systems is a detail-oriented, frustrating
Yeah, yeah,
business.
yeah, for sure. Well, so are you the type of person that maintains, like, holds on to the information up here, or are you the type of person like myself that has to put this stuff down on
Both.
cards? Both?
I
Oh,
have,
okay.
yeah, I have messy writing.
All right.
I'm pretty
Very
good at
cool.
retaining, but yeah, I have to keep my notebooks for sure.
Yeah. So if you had to pick somebody from the American Revolution that you identify with the most, the person that is like, this is my person. Me and that person, we're on the same wavelength. Who would that person be?
Nathaniel Greene.
Nathaniel Greene for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
There's
Who's your
some
close
other
second?
ones I like, people that people don't know who they are.
Okay.
Um, Otha Holland Williams, he was on the Maryland line.
Okay.
Most people don't know who he was. He was taken prisoner at Fort Washington. Um, he was Nathaniel Greene's adjutant in the South. He was at the
Yeah.
Battle of Camden. Gates is adjutant. He doesn't get enough credit like Dr. Warren.
Yeah.
And I'd like to write about him. If
Okay.
I did do that, I'd have to really say, hey guys, this guy was a real guy. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
Nathaniel
Yeah.
Greene's more known. Even Dr. Warren is more known. So.
Yeah. So Scott R. McKinley says that he's looking forward to the book that you were talking about writing earlier very much.
Oh,
And
cool. About
hello
Dr.
to
Warren.
Ann McGee out there.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So earlier today, some pretty bad news came out about the former president with his diagnosis with cancer.
Oh, I hadn't heard.
Yeah, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, I believe. President Biden was.
Oh.
Um, what do you think we can take away from the stories of people at the end of their lives when they're getting closer to the end, or maybe something tragic starts to happen with them? For example, Nathaniel Greene. Right there at the end of his life, this tragedy happens at the age of 43. What can we gain from that?
Mm, that's a pretty heavy duty question. And it's kind of strange you asked me that because my neighbor of 26 years, who's been a good neighbor, just died yesterday.
Mm,
Um, we weren't his family, but we were, like I said, good neighbors to each other. And so his death was, hit us really hard.
yeah,
But taking away, what can you take away from the end of someone's life? I I don't know. That's a complicated emotion. I don't know if I can really articulate that well without thinking about it more.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a very difficult topic. And with hearing that news today about the former president, it's a pretty big deal, especially considering the fact that there's so many people that suffer from cancer in the United States and, well, around the world, really. I would hope. I would hope we can all grasp at something there, some kind of a lesson um, in our lives. Maybe
There
something.
always is.
Yeah,
You're right. There's always something good we can learn
yeah, for
from
sure.
whoever they've left behind.
Yeah,
Whether it's him or a relative or a friend, they've left something behind that
yeah.
we can remember and touch and maybe keep with us, pass on.
What do you think your legacy is going to be with these books?
No, I never thought about that either. um, Hopefully I've helped someone who feels like I do, understand some of these people that are us people, that
Yeah,
it's not just my point of view, but it's the reader's point of view,
yeah,
to help the reader understand who they were, and to the reader to be able to see it from their perspective, not just me writing it, but to be able to hear a voice, their voice that's been long gone.
yeah. You always hear people talk about how the next generation kind of loses something from history, or maybe the next generation isn't paying as much attention to it as they probably should be. And I know even my generation coming up when I was a much younger person, they were saying the exact same thing about us.
Hmm.
And here I am today, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and I'm starting to pay attention to history and the patterns and all of that stuff. Um, where do you think history is in the hands of people today? How important is it to them? Do you think this is something that maybe needs to be explored a little bit more? Or, I mean, what is your take on all of that when it comes to generations?
History can always be explored more. It's never ending. Um, a lot of it is repeated. I mean, not we don't repeat history, but that history itself has been repeated through books or stories or whatever over and over. Um, I have older grandchildren. Some of them are not interested at all in history, and others
Yeah,
are. But I think what you said, we have to mature more to give ourselves room to think about things that are important, and history is important.
yeah,
It should be important. I
yes,
think when we're younger, we're too busy focused on what's tomorrow, or graduating from high school, or our friends, or
right.
whatever that may be. But I think that, people that are history minded have always had some kind of interest in it, even if it's been suppressed. Like the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere poem I learned when I was in sixth grade. I
Yeah,
mean, that's kind of started my whole. I didn't know a whole lot about the American Revolution, but it kind of started the whole thing because I want to know what the heck he was doing.
yeah,
But I didn't like revolve my life around it or even talk about it. My other friends would be like, "What are you talking about?" It's like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't
for
have your
sure.
friends making fun of you and you're,
Yeah,
13. And so I think people do grow into history. And, the thing is that I've done for the last 2, 3 years, I've been speaking about General Greene all over. I mean, even small venues with Sons of the American Revolution chapters, lots and lots of those. Big
yeah,
venues, luncheons, banquets, Valley Forge. And these people are really interested in history.
yeah,
And they have a lot to talk about from their point of view. I hear a lot of stories from these SAR guys about their patriots and how they got into, and that it's all fascinating,
yeah, for
So,
sure. Necessary Trouble says hello to everyone. Hello, Necessary Trouble.
hello.
It's one of our frequent flyers here on the
Oh, is
channel.
it?
Yeah.
All right.
So, with the American Revolution, it looks like you kind of got some of these characters nailed down here. Is there any plans of possibly branching off and getting to the American Civil War?
I've actually had people ask me that, and I was telling my husband that not too long ago.
Yeah,
Um, yes, but then I'd really have to dive in. What I know about it is not nearly enough meat to write a book, but I could probably concentrate on something small,
Okay.
not try to do Gone with the Wind, just,
Yeah. Yeah.
so like, like Gettysburg, the, what's his name, Michael Shaw wrote Killer Angels, that's
Yeah.
something more small like that. I mean, Gettysburg was a big battle, but
Right.
just over a few days. So, yes. So, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, you heard it here, folks. She may be branching off into Civil War here pretty soon.
You guys can pick a person I can write around, or give me some guys or girls.
Okay. Yeah. We could definitely post it out
Either
there.
side.
You got it. So Scott Scar McKinley pops up here and he says Selena's social media posts help keep the history she writes about alive.
Oh, hi,
Photos of where
Scott.
she goes, where she speaks are not book plugs, but accompanying um, history to the book. Very cool.
Thanks, Scott. It's good I'm glad to see you're on here or hear you on here.
Very cool. Well, we're getting closer and closer to the end of this, and this is kind of where I turn it over to you. Basically, if you got some book signings or something coming up, or maybe some important stuff that you want to put out there to everybody, so that they can look and be on the lookout for it.
Um, my actually this year's been kind of slow. Then my next book signing is in Fayetteville, North Carolina,
Okay.
on July 10th. If anybody here is following me on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, DM me if you're interested and you live in that area. It's a Sons of the American Revolution chapter, but these guys love guests. They always
All right.
welcome people. And that's the way it is across Texas, South Carolina. I'm sure North Carolina is the same.
Yeah.
Um, look out. I'm going to Guilford Courthouse. And so
Nice.
watch out for those pictures, and a lot of drama and crying over that. Seeing General Greene's equestrian statue there.
Yeah.
If you haven't read the book, please do.
Yes.
It's on Amazon, and any other, Barnes and Nobles or whatever big book retailer. You can buy it from any of them.
Absolutely.
And everybody share your stuff with me. We follow each other on uh, social media, and I learn things from my mutual followers. We learn things from each other, so just keep that up. And look
Very
out for my
cool.
book about Joseph Warren. It'll be probably a year before it's finished.
Okay.
These things take a lot of time editing book covers, more editing, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
And how's that process work out for you anyway? Like you have someone assisting you with that editing?
yes, I have actually it's a couple of editors that goes through quite a few edits, a lot. Be
Okay.
surprised how many mistakes are made when typos.
Yeah.
And I have a professional book cover designer who I work with. We work together to decide on the book covers, and so it takes a long time once I'm done with my draft to get a book to publication that's properly done.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'd hate for somebody to come along and try to edit some of my videos. I don't think I'd ever release a video. So
Same with my books. Big messy writer. I need help.
I think at the end of the day, we all need help. We help each other. So, well, Selena, it's been a blast having you on the channel here. Salina B. Baker, Line of Splendor. If you don't have your copy, get on Amazon and get your copy. History with Waffles approved. All
Thank you,
right.
Charlie. Thanks,
Nice having you
everyone.
on this afternoon.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Now, I couldn't think of a better place to end this video than right here in the middle of the woods, the Battle of the Wilderness, at the hotly contested Brock and Plank Road, Orange Plank Road. Not too far in that direction, Longstreet's wounded. Right here where I'm at right now is a place where men like Wadsworth and Hayes end up losing their lives. Families lose loved ones. Soldiers burn to death in these fields around me here. If you'll let these fields do it, they'll touch your soul.